Hello and welcome to the Inside Track, the podcast where we chat about all the things that give you the edge in the worlds of innovation, business, design, tech, and culture. I'm Fuzlin Esau, and today we're joined once again by Becca Anderton, Head of Engineering, and Toby Rogers, Head of Product here at Hedgehog Lab. Welcome to both of you.
Hi.
Morning.
So, everyone's kind of met you guys already. So we'll jump straight into the topics for this week. And the big one, obviously, is Claude Design launched just last week, and it's already gotten a lot of attention. It's been applauded for how much design time it's saving versus more traditional methods. It's creating infographics, landing pages, mock-ups. People have been designing up a storm, which is all fine and good. But the sheen of newness seems to be wearing off a lot quicker these days. Scott Clary wrote in his most recent newsletter that mediocre anything produced by people who are using AI to reach good enough without ever developing taste will become completely worthless. So if everyone is using the same tool for the same output, how can designs be differentiated? And how can it avoid the sameness that sort of traditional Gen AI has become synonymous with? Toby, I'm going to kick off with you on this one.
I think this is really interesting, and I'm quite excited about the possibilities of things like Claude Design. But I think this plays to something we were talking about last week around kind of knowledge and wisdom and skill and stuff like that. I think everybody's getting really, really excited about what AI design tools can output, but that's kind of conflating design output with the process that leads you towards good design. And I think what kind of that quote kind of hints at is we're seeing something akin to kind of like the Pablo Picasso's napkin thing playing out in like large scale. And I don't think that Picasso's napkin story is actually true, but I think it comes from another story from another artist from like 18 something or other who ended up in a court case about how much time he spent doing art. But story is kind of Picasso sat in his Parisian cafe. Admirer comes up to him and goes, "Oh, I love you, Pablo. Can you do me a sketch?" And he grabs a napkin, does a sketch on a napkin, and gives it to her and goes, "That's 1,000,000 francs." She goes, "1 million francs? It took you 5 minutes to do that?" And he's like, "Well, it's like 40 years worth of effort and learning and kind of craft to be able to do that in 5 minutes." And I think that's what we're seeing with AI design tools. AI design tools can output really, really nice design, but it's not design that's been through that kind of deeply thought through design process. And we'll begin to kind of see the difference between AI generated design and AI generated and design that's gone through that craftful process. There's another story that I'd read a little while ago that kind of reminds me of this as well, is the Chicago Sun-Times in 2013 or something like that sacked all of their photographers. So they had like 28 photographers, canned them all, and gave all of their reporters an iPhone and went, right, you've got the tools to take pictures. So instead of paying 2 people, we'll get 1 person to write the story, take the photos. And what happened was the results were so bad that it was like a massive embarrassment for the Chicago Sun-Times, and they had to hire all of their photographers again. So the photographers were taking photos with iPhone, but the difference was they had the craft of photography versus the reporters who didn't have that craft of photography, who saw things in a different way. And I think the tools don't give you good design. The thinking that goes into it is what gives you the good design at the end. And kind of organizations that are thinking, yeah, we can get rid of our design organization and just get our AI tools to do it, are in that Chicago Sun-Times frame where they're thinking design is the skill of using Figma. It isn't. It's the skill of understanding what constitutes good design.
Well, first of all, I hope every single photographer, when they got hired back, managed to greatly inflate their salary for the inconvenience of that whole scenario.
At the very least.
At the very least. No, I completely agree with Toby. Like, it's very similar to the AI coding tools, right? It's kind of the same sort of issues across all of these tools. So the junior talent is gonna skip the phase where they learn the real in-depth knowledge of their craft and what they're doing, and instead, actually, they're just learning how to use AI. So if there was ever a circumstance where they didn't have that tool, they wouldn't have the knowledge behind what they're trying to achieve. And I think, I sat on the train on Wednesday with a colleague coming back from the office, and he was just kind of flicking through Facebook, and you can tell, like, every single AI generated thing, it just has the same look. Like, everything is the same. It's not the same, but it's the same. And it's going to be like Claude design. Yes, maybe eventually it will improve to a point where there is an ability to differentiate, but you're going to start seeing websites pop up that just all have that vibe. And then it's kind of a question of, the question that people have to ask themselves, really, is it like, are you okay with good enough? Because that's what we're doing here, right? It's good enough. Or do you actually want to stand out and maybe commit to having some real human input there, maybe using Claude design as a foundation, but putting the human input on top of that? Because it's exactly the same as development. Are you okay with Claude writing all of your code and never having a human look at it and having loads of security loopholes in it, or do you still want that human side of it? And I think it's really important that we don't forget how important that side is, and how important it is that our designers and our developers and everyone still has an understanding of the work that they're doing with the AI, rather than just understanding how to prompt AI to get the results that you want.
Absolutely. And I do think it is that sort of idea of taste and knowing what is good. That is a skill that's developed over years and years and years. And if you remove that, you also kind of get into, I think they've said there's going to be a crisis when it comes to junior designers, because they just aren't in the market. So in a few years time, when they're supposed to go up to senior level, they're just not going to be there. And it's one of those things where it's very interesting how that is going to play out, because now we're sitting with, one, a crisis of sameness, and two, a crisis that the people that would have come in to replace senior designers aren't going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So we've sort of like boxed ourselves into a corner.
I read a hilarious post on Blue Sky this morning that was a screenshot from Twitter of some tech CEO who was saying, whose post was to kind of enable us to sort of optimize and reduce costs for tokens for using Claude or OpenAI or whatever to do our agentic coding stuff. We are hiring junior developers to do the kind of entry-level stuff, so we don't have to pay for the tokens. So what you've done is you've done what was happening.
Created a weird cycle here. I think it's probably Sorry. I was just going to say, I do think there's probably an important point for balance, that like every single tool causes like a degree of fear, right? When Photoshop came out, horrifying. And, when web builders started coming out, everyone kind of like, you have that panic of, oh my God, it's going to steal our jobs. None of them have yet. And I really am a firm believer that, yes, you can use these tools to make yourself more efficient and to support you, but I genuinely am in the camp that these tools aren't going to take actual human beings' jobs, but I just think it will probably be harder to differentiate yourself, because it's going to be, instead of the top 20-30% that stand out, it's going to be conflated down to like the sort of top 10%. So you're going to have to work a bit harder to differentiate yourself. But I think, it is important to keep in mind that human nature is that we do panic when these tools come out, which is understandable. But, it often transpires that the worst case scenario does not come to pass.
He could take that right back to like printing press.
Literally, yeah.
Process there, all the way.
So our next question actually touches on something that Becca just mentioned. It's data privacy. So it's something that we all are seemingly concerned with, but we tend to not act in that way. So this time, we've seen the launch of the sort of beta Starbucks app inside ChatGPT, allowing you to link your Starbucks account directly to ChatGPT as a sort of way to discover new drinks to order. So it doesn't actually do the ordering for you. It just kind of suggests a drink for you based on your profile. A side effect of this, however, is that the amount of permissions you have to grant, including all your previous discussions you've had with ChatGPT to Starbucks and vice versa. And we know people ask very, very personal questions inside something like ChatGPT. All of this to just sort of give you an idea of what you can order. Have we hit sort of a privacy paradox? Do people who say they care about privacy actually care about it? And would you let AI order a coffee for you in exchange for all of your GPT data?
I find this horrifying. I can't believe it. The thing is, you mentioned then, would I let AI order me a coffee? You can't actually order your coffee through the thing.
You can't.
Like, it literally just tells you
give you an idea.
You can order. It's just insane. No, I wouldn't ever do that. It's bonkers. And you mentioned people use ChatGPT for really personal stuff. They do. Like, there was a study. People use it as like a therapist. We know people that use it as almost like
medical
a
advice,
relationship, or medical advice and things like that. And I think about my own use of ChatGPT, which honestly is largely stupid stuff like, why does my elbow hurt when I'm riding my bike? But like, I do use it for some other stuff. So I've been dealing with some issues surrounding the estate of an estranged relative recently, and I have no idea about probate law. So I'm kind of putting that into ChatGPT so I don't have to do 25 Google searches. I just want that information. But it goes like, really, I'm so sorry for your loss and all of this. It's like, I don't want that. I just want the bare minimum. But ChatGPT has that information now. I don't want Starbucks to know that. That's insane. But I think it's so, people say, oh, I really care about my privacy, but people also really care about convenience. And that's what this is. They're gaining like a semi-tiny degree of convenience and going, yeah, that's all right, that'll do. And most people are not reading those terms and conditions. Let's be honest. None of us ever do it. Like, you get these huge long lists of things that you agree to, and nobody just go, yeah, fine, I agree, without actually realizing what they're doing and what they're signing up for. And I think, like, really, how difficult is it to go to ChatGPT if you're really that bothered about getting a coffee order and doing it without linking Starbucks? Like, is that convenience, to me, is never going to be worth that trade-off of giving away all of that data to Starbucks. Like, I just think it's fundamentally absurd that we are in such a culture that people will willingly make that trade-off without considering the ramifications. How is Starbucks storing that data? Do we know? Do they know? Are they comfortable with the idea that if Starbucks suddenly has a huge data breach, that all of their personal chats with ChatGPT, they're gone? They could be used for anything. Do we know what Starbucks is using that data for? Why do they want it? Why do they need it? Like, it's just, people don't think beyond the point of, oh, it'd make it a little bit easier for me to decide what coffee I want this morning. And it's, it's insane.
Look at a menu.
Honestly, oatmeal cappuccino, move on with your day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it is also absolutely horrifying. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I think the convenience thing is massive, but I think it's not a sort of privacy paradox as such. I think it's like coerced convenience through user experience and design choices. So I was thinking about a few different sort of situations for this, and my family goes to Pizza Hut a lot, right? So probably one of the only places that me, my wife, and my kids can go for something to eat, and no one's complaining about anything. So if you think about the experience of that, you're going to Pizza Hut and they like, it's card payments only. You know, right, fine. You come in, you sit down, there's a QR code, you scan the QR code and order. You're like, all right, yeah, that's fine, because that's super convenient. I'll scan it, I'll put the order through and find out what everyone wants. Maybe like 4-pan pizzas, because I'll probably order Hawaiian and nobody else likes pineapple on pizza. So
Controversial topic right there.
yeah. And then they'll have to pay and go through all of that process. And it means at the end, I've paid when I've ordered. So at the end, when my kids are kicking off and they want to go and do something else, I don't have to do the whole waiting for someone to come and give me the bill and stuff. But if you think about the data that I've given away for that kind of experience, it's like insane. So Pizza Hut knows all about me. They've got my personal details. I've had to give them my email address to order something in a restaurant. My browser knows all about that. So my email provider knows all about that. And if, like most people, I'm using the same Gmail address or Hotmail address, which is the first one that I ever created, then all of that is linked to everything that I've ever used that for. And if I'm probably using Chrome and Gmail, then all of my kind of browser and search history is all linked together. And then if I'm using the same email address for ChatGPT or Claude, then all of that data's joined together. So what I've done is I've given away all of my data for the sake of the convenience of being able to buy a pizza in a restaurant with my kids. And I've actually got a return there. I've got pizza, but and does it feel worth it? Yeah, probably. But what happens if we suddenly get the like anti-pineapple on pizza party suddenly gains power in the UK, and then something the government knows that I've been buying pineapple on pizza, and what kind of the implications of that. So I think, and all of that's purely for convenience. And I think you really need to think about what data you're giving away in any sort of situation. But I then think, as kind of tech and product people, we need to be thinking about privacy by design. And I don't have to give away all of that info to have that experience with Pizza Hut. They don't need my email address. They don't need to know who I am. They just need to know what I want to order and what table I'm on. So there's a whole thing there that we've been kind of led towards because data is super valuable. So companies want the data.
It also kind of reminds me of the early days of Facebook with the sort of like, was it the Zynga games that were like everyone was paying like Farmville and various things, and in the process giving away not only their data, but all of their friends and sort of anyone connected with them. And just for like okay, I need a token for this thing to grow. I don't know. But it almost feels like we're sort of a little bit at that place. And I think Facebook was held liable for that being a bit of a, sort of unethical. So it's interesting that we kind of find ourselves a little bit at that same space again. Only this time it seems to not be unethical. I think it's now sort of just the idea of handing your data over for the smallest convenience seems to be normal. I think of just sort of things like even just having like Apple Pay on your phone and sort of that Apple knows where you are. It knows if you're sitting up, lying down, where you're looking at. And now it knows every single, penny that you're spending. And that is a scary reality to think about because that, you sort of start getting the same prompts. Like I get an Uber Eat prompt just around dinner time every night going, hey, we have a special. And you sort of thinking, oh, that's maybe I should do that. But that's all sort of become very strategic and very sort of built into the process of everything is linked. Everything has everything. And I think it really starts to get very scary when you start thinking about things like medical information and obviously whether or not you like pineapple on a pizza, because that could take you down, Toby, in a couple of years.
Actually.
But you start like, what if it starts making decisions for you? It goes, well, you have 5 coffees a day. We're going to ping that over to your insurance company, and your insurance company is going to go like, well, and then you just start going deeper and deeper, and before you know it, we're all in the darkest timeline.
It feels like privacy is a privilege and it is hard. and you need to know what you're doing to be able to keep your data private, which is the opposite of what it should be like. So I think I've got something like 200 odd burner email addresses. I create a new email address. Before. So realistically, in that Pizza Hut situation, I've probably got like pizzahut.pizza123@slmail.me. That means that email address only has that data associated to it. But going through the process of doing that is difficult, and it adds a lot of friction to what is being pitched as a convenient process. So I think there's a lot of UX design choices that we're making in tech that are pushing us towards that world where we're giving away all of our data.
I think the ethical consideration is an important one. Like that, the Facebook situation that you mentioned, I can't remember what it was actually called now. It's completely left my brain, but I do remember when it all came out. They never told people. Like I think like they were held accountable because they did that really sneakily. Like there was no indication that they were gathering that data. Now, technically, they are telling us that. They're putting it in the terms and conditions, and they're putting it in the privacy policy. So presumably from a business perspective, they're kind of sitting there and thinking, oh, well, ethically, I'm fine because I've told you, and it's your fault if you don't read the T's and C's. But like actually, like Toby says, you kind of have to know what you're doing, and you've got to be savvy enough that you do take the time to kind of at least skim the T's and C's to see what's going on. Is that enough? Should they be more upfront about it? Should it be like a big glaring thing that's not T's and C's, and just be like, just so you know, if you give us this data, this is what we're going to do with it, and just make it really obvious? Because we know that, we know that people don't read the T's and C's. Everyone knows that, and it's like it shouldn't be accepted that these big corporations can harvest this data relying on that trait of people. Like I really think there probably will come a point when all of this will come to a head. Starbucks will probably leak everyone's ChatGPT data, and then there will be a thing where corporations have to be very upfront. It's like booking fees. They've just changed booking fees in the UK, right? They can no longer sneak on booking fees at the end of a transaction. Previously, they could wait until literally the last step and be like, oh, by the way, extra 10%. Can't do that anymore. They have to be really upfront about it. I suspect in a few years' time, that's what we will have to move towards of, if you share this is what we're going to do with it, just so that people are a lot more aware of what's going on in the background.
You see a couple of sort of class actions around
someone's getting
in the near future. Apple's currently involved in one in, I think it's the US and the UK, around their cloud storage, because apparently they've been overcharging people. Or so if you are in the UK or the US, have a look and see if you are owed some money from Apple. Speaking of tech, and that's what we focus on really most of the time, is there seems to be sort of a new tech fixation, new product fixation fairly regularly these days. So the new things like NFTs, the metaverse, and obviously now we have AI. And it kind of feels like it's all hit sort of a new peak of overexposure and really sort of like fatigue. So The Verge has said that there's certainly something around the growing gap between those who are making these sort of big tech advancements, LLMs and those sort of things, and those who are being served by it, with sort of a continual chase of rather the speculative concepts that generate buzz, but without sort of a real world value. And I sort of really go back to sort of the idea of NFTs and metaverse and those sort of things. RIP to both of those. So is Silicon Valley and sort of the wider tech industry now being pushed forward more by just hype cycles and venture capital rather than by genuine user needs? I think this is a fantastic question for both of you, considering your roles. Toby, what are your thoughts?
I think we're in the middle of a kind of tech bubble that is driven by VC money. So a lot of the tech that is happening at the minute exists purely to make people a load of money. And that isn't to make people a load of money in the classic software development kind of process, which is identify a problem that a bunch of people have that's burning enough that we could build a solution that they will give us money to provide them for. And that whole sort of bootstrapped development, it is now more along the lines of, let's find a gap that can generate a ton of wealth, and let's see if we can turn that into something that people may want to give us money for, and kind of put the sort of spin on that to make it feel inevitable and make it feel like we kind of have to embrace the stuff that's happening. And that's not saying that we're necessarily building evil tech and stuff like that, and whether like some of the things that we're doing are fundamentally wrong. I think there's idea that kind of really tech's not good or bad. But it's not neutral either. It's what you do with what you're building. And I think we may be creating things that have utility in the future. And if you think like back to sort of like the .com boom, we were probably in a similar place where people were building websites and online services and stuff that were kind of searching for a market and certain kind of products that were looking for a problem to pretend they were solving. But all of that led to the infrastructure that we've got now. And if you fast forward like 10 or 20 years, maybe like the AI stuff that we're doing now that feels like that similar hype cycle will be the infrastructure for a load of things that we're doing. And even if you think about like NFTs that were a thing for a bit, I've probably still got a MetaMask account with a bunch of NFTs in. But if you think about what we're talking about at the start around design, and we're now getting AI tools that are outputting AI generated design, is there a need for like human created provenance for digital artifacts? And actually, is some of the infrastructure that underpinned the kind of pointless NFT stuff actually valuable in the future? So I think there's a lot of stuff going on that does have value, but we are in a loop of, we're making money. This is a money making thing. You want this thing. You need to have this thing. And it's a bit like the movie, like They Live, when you put the glasses on and see what the real world actually looks like. And yeah, it's interesting, but I think we're losing sight of the kind of bootstrapped products that serve real needs and have real value, and all now spending loads of money on things that actually don't make a difference to our lives and stuff like that.
Becca, your thoughts?
Toby, you are now officially the only person I know that has an NFT. This is the first time I've even thought about them in years. I'd sort of forgotten about their existence, which just shows that the pattern that we go through is that I remember when they were like a huge thing, and then overpromised, underdelivered, and they've just faded into kind of obscurity. But I think we're building tools that are incredibly powerful right now, but we're not committing to solving meaningful problems. Like the problems that we're solving with them are kind of superfluous. Like, let's link it back to Starbucks. Like, the idea that that's what you need, we don't need that. And I think the people that are building their tools, they're so excited about what the possibilities are, and they're so entrenched in the tech behind it that they're not kind of considering what the users want, which really is like reliability, simplicity, like a very obvious value. And I think, you build this hype and you build it and you present these tools, people start using them, they kind of trust in them, but then when they are underserved by what we've created, they start to then get skeptical of everything. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing AI fatigue coming in. And I think we are already kind of seeing it. Like, even I'm a little bit like, I get it, like I use it day to day to make myself more efficient, but like, I cannot stand being on social media anymore because it's just filled with it. And I think, the danger really is that the more we overhype it, the more people are going to get burnt out by it before we actually get to a stage where it's like real value is kind of available for general use, which I think is a shame, because I do think we've got a great opportunity to build some, like, we're already building powerful tools. If we can build those tools with like very meaningful solutions, great. Like, I spoke to someone last year who is using AI to look at pelvic ultrasounds to help diagnose endometriosis 10 years earlier than it is done on average. Fantastic. That's what we should be using it for, not, I don't want to use Starbucks again as an example, but the generic day-to-day stuff, like you just don't need it for that. And I think, it's very easy to just become skeptical of everything and lose sight of actually where we can draw real value and real benefit from it.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I totally agree. I think I'm an eternal tech optimist, even though I probably don't sound like it in this conversation. So that's why I've got stuff like NFTs and things like that. It's like time like, this could be amazing. This could be super cool, and then a lot of the time it isn't. But I've enjoyed the journey. But I think like it's kind of the Hedgehog Lab, we're very much a kind of customer-centered, user-centered organization, and we build products through that kind of double diamond design organization way of building products, which is very much about who's the customer here, what problem do they have, how do we solve it in the most effective way that gives them like real value. And that's fundamentally how digital experiences should be designed and built. But we're in a world at the minute where we've kind of got a product-centric development process where I build this product because I want this product to exist, because I want this product to exist because I want to make money for this product that I've had this idea from. And you're kind of caught in this continuous loop of building stuff for the sake of building stuff, because if you build that stuff, you can kind of force value out of it. And I think we need to move back towards that. Actually, what are the hard problems that are worth solving here? And like Becca's kind of ultrasound examples, like super exciting and super interesting, because AI and other tools give us the ability to solve not just hard problems, but previously unsolvable problems. And there's a massive opportunity to do some really cool stuff with that. Instead, we're building loads of massive data centers to enable us to ask Starbucks to design a drink for us that we thought about ourselves anyway.
Just ask someone, like just literally, just anyone else. But I think that we are seeing a lot of these companies sort of been driven by sort of inflating valuations and those sort of things. I can't remember what the company's name was. We did the pivot just last week, and they were sort of an ed tech company, and they tacked on AI, and they went from like a 10 million valuation to like a 100 million valuation just by sort of doing a little, I can't remember what the name of it is, but it was a very, and that seems to be what people are doing now, is just sort of going, okay, cool. Let me just tack this thing on, this hyped up thing, and then that should really bring people in. And I agree with you, Toby. I think I was a big proponent of NFTs because I really think that digital art needs some sort of provenance and some sort of way to be able to have a way to track where they've originated from. So I really thought it was going to change the way that people would do that. Instead, it became like an overhyped bro tech thing, which was kind of sad. It was really sad to see that happen. Awesome. So to finish off, we usually end on a little bit of an up note. And so I would like to know what your cultural pick of the week is. So something that's inspired you, a book, a TV show, music, piece of design, something that inspired you. Becca, what has inspired you this week?
You always give these subcategories, and every week I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to go rogue. I'm not giving you a book or a TV or music. No, I just because I'm a walking, talking stereotype. If anyone knows me in real life, it's a bit of a joke. I'm like, oh, by the way, have I ever told you that I ran a marathon? I didn't run it this time, but my fiance ran the Manchester Marathon on Sunday, and so I obviously went with him as the dutiful partner to cheer him on. But sincerely, if you're ever in doubt about human nature and you're kind of feeling really bleak about the world, the best thing that you can go the best thing you can do is go and cheer on a marathon, or a half marathon or a triathlon or anything like that, because you see the best of people at kind of one of their worst times. Like, I have run a marathon and it's bloody hard, and cheering on these people at 40k when they've got 2k to go and they've just done a shift, like a good few hours of running. It's very uplifting. Like, the people on the sides, the runners themselves. Honestly, if you are ever feeling grim about the world, please just go and cheer on a marathon. Like, I can't understate, but it just makes you feel good, makes you feel positive, and it's a bit of a niche culture pick of the week, but I'm sticking with it.
100% agree with you. It is one of the most sort of inspirational things you can do and witness. I do want to ask if you saw yes or nut and peanut allergy running, because that was all over TikTok.
I didn't. No, I didn't see that. But there were a lot of runners. So, I looked out for our recruitment specialist, Tom. He was running, so he got a couple of cheers on from me, and then obviously my fiance. But no, I did in fact miss yes and peanut allergy. I didn't spot them.
Toby's looking at us like we're crazy. Apparently some people got confused by the where you type your name in for your bib.
Yeah.
And I
literally typed yes, thinking it was them saying, yes, I want my name on the bib. I don't know where peanut allergy came from.
I don't know. Someone just got confused. Like, I need to put this somewhere. This is an open field. Then we just put it here.
Just like I really needed to know that I'm allergic to peanuts, which fair enough. If it's anaphylaxis, like, make it very obvious, I guess.
Cool. Yeah.
I saw quite a few videos of people looking up specifically for those two rounds. So I hope that they did well. Toby, what has inspired you this week?
Mine's probably not as inspirational as at all. So, but probably highlights the awesomeness of like people and creativity and stuff like that. So I have been really enjoying a YouTube channel called My Analog Journal, which is a YouTube channel of people doing DJ sets. So really nice setting, couple of record decks, like plants and stuff all over the place. The setup for it is really cool and really nice, but it is incredibly eclectic. So they've got like sets of people doing like Nigerian funk from the 1970s, Peruvian psychedelia, English kind of ambient techno, all sorts of like super kind of left field and super interesting things, and really showing the kind of eclecticism of creativity in music across the globe. It's extremely good. I really like it. I've been putting it on when I've been working pretty much all the time this week. I've been having it on in the kitchen when I've been cooking. I've been listening to and watching loads of really, really, really cool stuff.
Nice. Have a future sort of inspirational thing. There is a musical that's currently being filmed, a sort of historical musical that's being filmed in Cape Town at the minute, and it's sort of a combined history of like South African musicians. So Hugh Masekela, Miriam Makeba. So we have sort of a bunch of people down. Just Cynthia Rebo is playing Miriam Makeba, which is really incredible sort of thing to see. So yes, I'm really excited to see that all come together, and that is, I love seeing these sort of things where it's taking something. It's not a biopic. It's not a sort of traditional film. It really is just kind of like a musical journey. So I'm gonna sort of please see how that goes. Well, thank you both for joining today, and thank you for everyone who's listening. To find out more about our sessions, our briefings, our product builders, or the network, head on over to our website, our social channels, and of course follow the podcast for more. We will see you next week. Thank you, everyone.